Not all multi-site models produce the same results. Some approaches to multi-site increase the odds that we'll have a healthy, thriving ministry that reproduces disciples of Jesus. Other approaches to multi-site increase the odds that we'll actually create more complexity, overburden our staff and volunteers, we'll spend more money, foster division in our church, and get off mission. In this video, we'll briefly discuss the why behind multi-site and explore popular multi-site models, including video versus live teaching. We'll address multi-site decision rights and structure and explain the unique role of the campus pastor. But before we get into that, take a minute to hit the subscribe button on the screen. Here at the Unstuck group, our goal is to help pastors like you grow healthy churches by guiding them to align their vision, their strategy, team, and action. With every tool and process we develop, our priority is to help churches help people meet and follow Jesus. We're here to help you get your church unstuck, so make sure you subscribe and don't miss a video. Multi-site comes with a lot of challenges, but when multi-site ministry is done right, it produces significant kingdom results. In fact, multi-site churches are growing faster and reporting more faith conversions than other churches, including new church plants. So if you're on a mission to help more people say yes to Jesus and take their next steps towards Christ, multi-site is a proven ministry strategy that has proven results. However, not all models produce the same results. Multi-site models exist on a spectrum, from identical campuses to a local expression of each campus to church plants, which, to be clear, are different than multi-site campuses. In our work with over 100 multi-site churches, we found that each of these models produce some predictable outcomes. On the far right end of the spectrum is the church planting spectrum. It represents the highest level of autonomy or independence in church multiplication. And the benefits of the church planting model is the autonomy the church has to fine-tune their ministry strategies and approaches to that local context. And there's very little red tape or complexity because it is, by definition, independent. The challenge of church planting, though, can include things like a lack of funding and/or support, especially when it comes to developing and executing ministry strategies. So if you're considering a model in which each campus has its unique context or community, has a campus pastor who teaches most Sundays, and is fairly autonomous in decision-making, we encourage you to consider the church planting model over multi-site. At the other end of the spectrum is the identical campus model, or kind of like a franchise model. This is the highly identical end of the spectrum, and here the goal is to become one church in multiple locations, not multiple churches in multiple locations. And just like a restaurant franchise, a new person should be able to walk into each of your locations with similar expectations and receive a similar experience. This model is where we see the most success when it comes to church multiplication as a multi-site church. The positives include efficiencies. You're creating one strategy that you're replicating at all locations. So as you launch additional locations, that work and the cost associated with it doesn't need to be repeated. In essence, for each ministry area, you're creating one product that you're replicating as many times as possible. And that's great stewardship. Another benefit is more reach. For many churches, this model has helped them reach more people faster. Now, the tension or downside in the identical model is the identical nature of it. Especially if you have an entrepreneurial campus pastor, he or she may be frustrated that they can't create their own ministry strategies. Another downside is that it may limit where you multiply. For instance, we recently worked with a church that is placed in an area where the people surrounding their church are highly educated. Because of that, they've designed ministry strategies that will connect with highly educated people, and that's a good thing because they're trying to reach and disciple the people that God has placed around their church. When they multiply, they'll have to consider if the communities they're looking at have that similar mission field. The place in the middle is what we call local expression. In other words, there's a desire to be somewhat identical and somewhat autonomous. And the spirit of this model is a desire to kind of have the best of both worlds. We want the efficiencies of multi-site, like having a central team who provides operation support, communication support, or things like curriculum plans. And we want the flexibility and agility of church plants, where campus leaders have the freedom to develop and adjust strategies to meet their local context. The bad news is, it rarely works. You can't have a successful model like that when you want the benefits of being the same when you're not, and the benefits of being fully autonomous when you're not. Because of this, local expression really tends to lend itself towards church planting. In other words, if you're using this model, you should probably plan for that location to eventually become independent of your church. After all, Multisite asks, what do the people who we're trying to reach have in common? And church planning says, what's distinctive about the people who we're trying to reach? At the Unstuck group, we encourage churches considering Multisite to pursue an identical campus model. After all, once again, the goal of Multisite is to become one church in multiple locations, not multiple churches in multiple locations. And yes, in most cases, this requires a video teaching model. In our experience, video teaching is your best chance at providing a consistent teaching experience and maintaining unity across locations. The idea of live versus video teaching brings us to another key Multisite topic, and that's the role of the campus pastor. Choosing the right campus pastor is arguably the most critical factor for Multisite success. Poor leadership or lack of alignment from that role can actually doom your campus before it even launches. In order to maintain unity across campuses, it's important that the campus pastor be confident in taking a second chair leadership role. In a highly identical, again franchise-like model, it could look like this. The campus pastor should be more vision carrier than vision creator, more builder than entrepreneurial, more galvanizing, rallying people around plans than invention, where you're actually creating the plans, more empowering than controlling, and lastly, more missionary than preacher. And just as there needs to be clarity on the role and responsibilities of the campus pastor, healthy multi-site churches also need clarity around the relationship between the central and campus roles. How churches structure their teams is a big contributor to their stuckness, especially when combined with the already complex structure of a multi-site church. There's 3 areas that require clarity when designing your structure. First, authority versus influence. If you commit to multi-site, you're also committing to a matrix structure. And one of the keys to a healthy matrix structure is making sure everyone understands who has authority and who has influence in the reporting structure. In other words, who are they accountable to and who provides input. We recommend that authority flow through the campus pastor and influence through central service leaders. Central service leaders do define core ministry strategies, they have decision rights there, but it's the campus pastor who oversees performance. The second area is ministry strategy leadership. Every core ministry strategy needs an identified leader at your church. This includes things like a church-wide leader for your weekend experience, for your discipleship pathway, and your family ministries approach. Without a designated leader over each, ministries won't be healthy. The last area are central service teams. It's important to clarify who has central responsibilities early on in a multi-site strategy to avoid confusion in the future. As you choose your leadership and develop your structure, it's important to bring clarity around decision rights. Even before a church goes multi-site, a lack of clarity around who makes what decisions frustrates leaders, slows progress in critical areas, and builds this undercurrent of strain amongst teammates. This is only exacerbated in a multi-site setting. Every multi-site church needs to bring clarity in all levels of the ministry and organization where decision rights lie. And there are 5 main decision rights. The first is central decides, and then central decides with campus input. Then we have consensus between central and campus. Fourth is campus decides with central input. And the last is campus decides. It should be clear to the entire team where decision rights lie for every ministry approach. One final piece of advice when it comes to your multi-site staffing and structure: as much as possible, hire leaders over doers. Many churches fall into the trap of using their staffing dollars on part-time doers to fill in the gaps early in their multi-site process. And this is a mistake because later on, the greatest barrier to expansion in multi-site is a lack of leaders, not a lack of resources. If you invest only in part-time doer roles, you're going to end up with a leadership deficit in the years to come. Thanks so much for tuning into today's video. If you're looking to take your next step towards multi-site ministry, one of our experienced ministry consultants would love to help your church define a path forward. To learn more, visit us at theunstuckgroup.com and make sure to subscribe to our channel for more church leadership videos like this.